Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pat's Pulpit pregame show. We're here to talk about the New England Patriots taking on the Detroit-Lions in the third week of the 2017 preseason. With me, as always, is my good friend Alec Shane. Alec, we're finally here. How you doing?
We are finally here. It's definitely preseason for both of us, isn't it, buddy? We've been trying to get this stuff to work. We're trying to do some new things, some new formatting, and we're having a little bit of trouble, but I'm glad to see your face. We're back up, ready to go. It is week 3, which is the most important week of the preseason, so we better get together.
Oh, seriously, though, we tried to do some of this new fandangled Facebook Live stuff, but, gotta rely on this Google Hangout. It's been good to us last year. It's going to be good to us again. Let's get down to it. The New England Patriots are expected to play their starters today against the Detroit Lions, as they typically do during the third week of the preseason. Alec, in seasons past, has the third week of the preseason meant anything for the overall success of the Patriots?
Well, if you want to take Patriots-Lions as a benchmark, the last time these two teams met was 2013. The Jim Schwartz-led Lions shellacked the Patriots. I think it was 42-6, the final score. Tom Brady was 16 of 24 for 185 yards, a single touchdown, a pick, was sacked twice. Patriots got ruined. The Lions were excited. They were cheering. They were celebrating. Jim Schwartz was having a field day on the sidelines. He might have gotten a Gatorade bath after this one, but the arrows have trended in opposite directions ever since. So, no, there's nothing to take out of this, but it is the biggest week of the preseason, and the Patriots and Lions should be a good game, and I'm excited to see what the Patriots do offensively.
Yeah, seriously, this should be a really good opportunity for the New England starters just to get out there and to put on a good performance. Tom Brady should be out there. Rob Gronkowski is expected to play again. We'll get to see a little bit more of Brandon Cooks. Mike Gillislee should be ready to go. Julian Edelman has been warming up. I personally am looking forward to seeing how the tight ends perform today, because Gronkowski didn't see a single target last week against the Houston Texans in his 14 snaps. So I'm really curious to see how he reacts with the ball in his hands after having that back surgery. And additionally, I'm looking forward to see what Dwayne Allen does. He didn't really have as many opportunities last week either. He looked like a solid blocker. But I think both of them were just getting their feet wet in the New England system, trying to get the physicality back. And so I'm really excited to see how both of them play.
No, as well you should be. Tight end is one of those positions. We're very set at the top of the roster with Gronkowski and Allen. Like you said, both should be out for significant time in the first half at least. Hopefully Gronk not too much, but that third tight end remains a question mark. Who's going to be the third tight end on that roster? Matt Lengel did not travel with the team, I don't think, so that basically leaves Jacob Hollister and James O'Shaughnessy in competition for that third tight end spot. Look for both of those guys to give their best effort today, because if they can see some time with the ones, with Tom Brady and Dwayne Allen or Gronkowski, Brandon Cooks out there, that could go a long way towards solidifying their final roster spot.
Yeah, and some rumor that we've been seeing a little bit more on the Twitter. A lot of the beat reporters are kind of insinuating that the idea of having 3 tight ends on the roster is no longer a sure bet, so long as other players like DJ Foster to continue to step up. And the way that you have to think about it is that you have Rob Gronkowski and Dwayne Allen. They're the roster locks. You got to add James Devlin into the mix as well. I know he's not a pure tight end, as in the sense that he's not a tight end at all. He's a fullback, but they utilized him in that tight end capacity a little bit last year when Gronkowski went down before Matt Lengel showed up. And so the Patriots don't really need to have 3 tight ends on the roster when you consider a little bit further that, you have Matt Lengel, you have James O'Shaughnessy, and you have Jacob Hollister. I don't know how hot the market is for tight ends right now, but I feel like you have to be pretty confident that at least 1 or 2 of them is going to make it through waivers. And so you can keep them on the practice squad. They're the types of players that you keep around in practice. They add a little bit of value there. And the Patriots like to treat the practice squad kind of like an extension of the active roster. So they'll have those players around. Maybe they'll even give Jacob Hollister the same base rookie salary that he was already earning. They did that last year with DJ Foster and Woodrow Hamilton, and just keep him around as an extra roster spot.
That's an interesting thought, because the pessimist in me and I guess the realist in me sees Gronkowski's injury history since he started playing in the NFL, and I'm not 100% convinced he's going to play a full 16 games. Allen seems like a relatively healthy guy all the time, but if Gronk goes down, which he probably will for at least some point of this season, they're only going to have 1 tight end on the roster and Dwayne Allen if they don't keep 3 on the active roster. Now, it does assuming they can bring some guys in on the practice squad, but I feel like the Patriots players just get poached after they get cut and the waiver wire starts to hit. So I don't know how it's going to work out, especially with half of the league going to get cut in a couple weeks or a couple days, I should say. I don't know. I don't know if it's really worth the risk. If there's a tight end that's proving his worth, I think Hollister's having a good preseason. I think O'Shaughnessy's having a good preseason. I think they're both making a strong case for themselves. I'm just not sure if they're willing to take that risk, let one or both of those guys slip through and find themselves dangerously thin at the position, a position that Bill Belichick has really coveted over the years should Gronkowski go down.
That's fair too. Hollister, remember, he had that 116-yard game in the first week of the preseason, so he is probably on the high end of a lot of teams' lists right now, particularly probably the Baltimore Ravens, where they rely a lot on their receiving tight ends, and they've dealt with a lot of injuries at the position. But O'Shaughnessy is a player that could slip through to the practice squad. He didn't really stand out in any real facet of the game, part of the reason why the Kansas City Chiefs made him available for a late-round pick. But again, there is always that chance, and I don't know if the Patriots would be willing to take that. Kind of an extended note, maybe they just keep Glenn Gronkowski around on the practice squad and he can play in a similar capacity. Moving on to another position on the offense, Mike Gillislee is expected to get a lot of time today while Rex Burkhead is not there. He's not even in the stadium. So Gillislee should be the team's leading short yardage back, early downs kind of guy on the goal line. What are you expecting to see from him, or what do you think he has to do to win back that starting job from Rex Burkhead?
So one thing we saw a lot of out of Rex Burkhead in week 2 of this preseason, we saw him motioning out wide a lot. We saw him going between the tackles a lot, and we saw him being an outlet receiver for Tom Brady and the other quarterbacks when they got on the field. He did everything really well in his limited action in week 2, and so Gillislee's going to have to at least match that. I don't think Gillislee's really a receiving back. He's not the receiving threat that Burkhead is, but I don't think that's his job. I think his job is to hit the A gaps, hit the B gaps, fall forward, be the short yardage back. So if he can hit the ground running and be a bruiser, I don't know how many carries he's going to get today. I imagine they want to be careful with his hamstring injury because that's the kind of thing, it doesn't fully heal right away for a while. So they're probably going to manage his reps. But in the limited touches he is going to get, I'm hoping he always falls forward. He doesn't hesitate at the line. He gets his blocking assignments right, and he sees the gap, and he goes through it with purpose and decision. He was a great yardage after the contact back last year for Buffalo. So if he can get hit at the line, fall forward a couple more yards, and do the job he was brought in to do, that should bode well for him. You made a good point. He's not a cut threat at this point. He's pretty much a roster lock. I can't imagine he's ever going to not make the team. But if I had to make a depth chart right now, as of this conversation, I'd definitely put Burkhead at the top of it. I think he's the number 1 guy right now, but Gillislee could earn it back if he shows that he can be a kind of grind him out back. They haven't really had that since Corey Dillon. So I think that's why they brought him in, to be the guy to eat up the clock. LeGarrette Blount was that guy in fits and starts, but we talked this at length, Rich, about how he'd run for like 13 yards and then -4 yards and then -2 yards and then 39 yards. It's very inconsistent. So consistency, averaging 3-4 yards a carry, going to go a long way for Gillislee.
Yeah, and no one's really been more consistent or efficient than Mike Gillislee over the past couple of years. He has I believe he's been averaging like 5.4 yards per carry over the past 2 seasons. Whatever it is, it's the highest mark in the entire league for a minimum of 100 carries. So he is capable of doing that. I really think that he will have an opportunity to put his stuff on film today, just because we've seen over the earlier preseason games, the Patriots, they used Jacob Hollister in the first week of the preseason. He was healthy and he didn't really play too much as a target in the second week of the preseason because the coaching staff had a sense of what he brings to the table. Patriots don't really know what Mike Gillislee can do. I mean, they do because they've been seeing him in practice, but not really in kind of a game situation, which is just as, if not more valuable. And so Gillislee will have all of those opportunities. A further running back roster battle that I'm curious to see: Dion Lewis, Brandon Bolden, DJ Foster. Those are 3 guys. I mean, Dion Lewis is firmly ahead of the other 2 in my opinion, but Bolden and Foster have been playing very, very well this preseason, and Bill Belichick's love for Bolden is unquestioned. DJ Foster he's doing everything that made him earned him a redshirt season last year as a rookie. Of those 3, how do you see that playing out?
Again, I like what Foster's shown in his limited action he's gotten so far. But again, I think we've had this conversation too. I just don't think there's any room for him right now. Bolden is a guy, they extended him in the offseason. He's a stalwart on special teams. He's one of those guys, he comes in and he's a good receiving back. He can do all things okay. He's not going to blow the doors off anywhere he goes, but he's not going to cause any major problems. I just think he's entrenched into the system, and he's the last back in, which leaves Foster on the outside looking in, unfortunately. And I don't think anything Foster can do, provided he just absolutely blows the door off tonight in Week 4 against the Giants, to make him sneak onto the roster. I think it might be another practice squad year for him, or maybe some other team sees something in him, picks him up off waivers.
Yeah, no, I think that everything that Foster is doing is an audition tape for another team. Patriots will be a little bit shorthanded on the offensive line with regards to blocking for these guys. We just have the inactive report right now from Jeff Howe of the Boston Herald. I will read it right now. Matthew Slater is out as expected. Malcolm Mitchell, Rex Burkhead, Brandon King, Nate Ebner, Keontae Davis, Elandon Roberts, Dante Hightower, Shea McClellan, Jamil Douglas, Adrian Waddle, Andrew Jelks, Nate Solder, Matt Lengel, Dietrich Wise, Geno Grissom, and Derek Rivers will all be out. Based off of those, what I just read, I mean, we already kind of covered the offensive side. We weren't really expecting Malcolm Mitchell to be too much of a contributor because he's been dealing with that knee. Solder and Waddle were also expected to be out. Cameron Fleming will have to step up there. Marcus Cannon will be available. But most of these inactives affect the defensive side of the ball. What do you think the Patriots will do to compensate for some of these players?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's too bad because I was actually hoping we'd see Geno Grissom out there today. There's been talk around training camp and in the beat reporters that he's made a big leap between sophomore year and his junior year in the league. I haven't seen any of it out of him, and I was really hoping to see him on the edge, maybe making a case for himself alongside Harvey Lange as a rotational guy. That's probably the biggest question mark the Patriots have right now, especially with the rumor you blogged about earlier, Rich, on patspulpit.com about Coney Ealy possibly being a trade bait target. We can talk about that in a little bit, whether he's actually a trade bait target or not. But Geno Grissom, that's really too bad. So and Landon Roberts, another guy you would have thought to see getting some reps out there because there's still some flux along the defensive line. But that just means these younger guys have more opportunities to step up. I just mentioned Harvey Lange. He got some time with the ones in the Week 2 preseason game. He wasn't overwhelming. He wasn't a game changer, but he was capable of growing into a larger role. And Coney Ealy now, as we talked about the trade bait just now, he has to step it up. This is his chance to really show why the Patriots traded down to get him, why they brought him in, and why he can be the guy along that edge defense that we are kind of looking for right now.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, Trey Flowers is expected to play again. He was expected to play last week against the Texans, and he did not. But hopefully we'll get to see a little bit of him with that first-team defense. But outside of Trey Flowers, that entire position is a huge question mark. And every week that Wise is out, I'm just already assuming that Derek Rivers is lost for the season, but every week that Wise is out during the preseason really affects his development because this is a very, very crucial time in his rookie year. And he was already expected to be a starter in that Patriots defense. And so this will be the best opportunity for Coney Ealy just to line up opposite of Trey Flowers and really show what he can bring to the table, because all those trade rumors, I think that it's most likely that it happened prior to all of these injuries. You know, I mean, Mike Giardi of Comcast shared this report saying that the reports of Ealy's potential trade came earlier in the summer. And that could mean that it happened before Rob Ninkovich retired. It happened before Derek Rivers tore his ACL. It happened before Dietrich Wise hurt his head. Geno Grissom has his undisclosed injury. There are a lot of moves that have happened since then. And I think that if anyone is concerned, Coney Ealy has really been stepping it up lately. I believe that he's been recorded having 3 pressures against the Houston Texans. That's what I counted. I think that he did a good job affecting the pocket. I think he was showing that he was very solid in a team capacity. And what I mean is that he's not going to be out there recording, 10, 12 sacks. He's not even going to be a Jabal Sheard as that top number 3 guy. But you put him out on the field, he will do what you need him to do. When he was out there against the Texans, he was holding his line of scrimmage and he let someone else make the play. And you can't have a superstar at every single position in that defense. And so if Coney Ealy is the weak point in your defensive line, your entire defensive 11-man, you know what? I think that he can do enough and bring enough to the table that he won't hamper anything, and he'll allow, David Harris, Dante Hightower, Alan Branch, everyone else around him to start making plays. And that's all you can really ask for him.
I agree with that. And I'm glad you brought up Dante Hightower and David Harris because they should be on the field together for the first time in this.
Hightower will not be playing. But
Hightower
Harris
will not
should
be
be.
playing.
Yeah.
Harris should be on the field. Okay, so I'm sad to hear that too, because I'm looking forward to seeing the combination of Hightower and Harris that they can bring to the table. Harris seems to be well ensconced as a major contributor to this defense going forward. He had the green dot in a lot of the training camp practices, and I imagine he'll be calling the plays tonight. But with Landon Roberts out, him possibly no longer being a roster lock, are you still concerned, Rich, about the linebacker depth on this team?
I'm not overly concerned. I think that the injuries that the Patriots have been dealing with are not super serious. I think that if the Patriots needed to play, Hightower would be available. I think the Patriots have been very, very overly careful with their players that are dealing with minor injuries, and they've been doing that for the past 2-3 years. And you know what? It's been working, so I think they should continue to do that. But yeah, if Roberts isn't on the team, that's kind of okay. I think that Roberts is a very, very exciting one-trick pony in the sense that he doesn't contribute much on special teams. He is, in all honesty, he's kind of a liability in pass coverage, and he's a hit or miss boom bust guy against the run, where maybe he'll hit a guy for a tackle for a loss. Other times he's just going to go into the backfield and the running back's going to go right into the open lane, and he's just going to go right past him. So I think that you see what Harris brings to the table. Harris is capable in coverage. He's solid against the run. He doesn't have much special teams value either, but he's better in both facets on defense. And yeah, if eventually Hightower comes back, that would be good. Kyle Van Noy, I think, is looking very solid in his first full season with the Patriots. Remember, he was a midseason acquisition. Shea McClellan should eventually be back. I think that that's important to note. And so the Patriots have a lot of starting caliber linebackers, and it's just a matter of, nursing those minor injuries right now until they're all ready to go.
No, yeah, that's true. One guy I was going to watch, like I mentioned before you listed the inactives, I was looking forward to seeing Geno Grissom tonight, but since he's not going to be playing, the guy I'm going to be watching for on defense is in the linebacker core. I think I brought him up in a podcast or pregame preview we did in the past. It's linebacker Trevor Bates. He's, I think, one of 2 or 3 guys wearing 44 right now, which is kind of the way it works with the preseason roster. But he is probably a long shot to make the roster, but he's done very well with the chances he's been given, and he got a ton of chances against the Texans, and he looks pretty good. And with these injuries, with these inactives tonight, there could be an opportunity for him as a middle inside guy if they don't decide to utilize Harvey Lange as much tonight. So I will be looking for Trevor Bates to hopefully make an impact, make a name for himself, and do everything he can to become maybe that last linebacker in on the roster. Who is your guy defensively to look for, Rich, that you're looking to see tonight in a positive way?
Well, I like that you mentioned Trevor Bates because Bill Belichick called him a grinder in one of the practice press conferences. And, that's probably up there, a little bit with the gritty and deceptively athletic.
He does a lot of things well.
Yeah, he's versatile. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's a good choice. I'm particularly excited, though, to see Adam Butler. I think that, we've seen Harvey Lange a lot. He's going to get a lot of opportunity. I didn't even mention him as one of those potential linebackers, but he's definitely there on that depth chart, possibly already ahead of a Landon Roberts if you were to make that decision right now, because Lange contributes so much on special teams. But outside of Lange, I think that Butler has the best chance to make the squad. And part of it is his versatility. The Patriots flip between a 5-man front and a 4-man front. And Adam Butler plays in both of those. He plays the 5 technique in the 5-man front, which means that he lines up against the offensive tackle. He plays a standard defensive end in the 4-man front, which is kind of surprising for a 6'5", 300-pound giant of a human. But he has been generating some pressure. He has a very, very good spin move, which is surprising, again, for someone of his size. You don't really expect a 300-pound person to have a devastating spin move. But he flashed that against the Houston Texans. And I think that the fact that he can play both defensive tackle and defensive end, he can play all across the formation. That just simply adds to his value. And when the Patriots are shorthanded at defensive end, he can fill that position. And when the Patriots have been looking for this interior pass rusher like they have been for the past few years, whether with Dominique Easley or Anthony Johnson, Adam Butler can fill that role too. And so he has done a lot with his opportunities that he's been given. And now this week against the Detroit Lions, I think that he will have an opportunity to again line up with the starters, hopefully be between Alan Branch and Trey Flowers. That would be a really good opportunity for him to show that he's not going to be a liability and that he can contribute with the starters.
No, I like that a lot. And again, we talked about the defensive line, and that rotation is going to be a lot of fun to watch tonight. I'm going to stay on the defensive line for one more question, Rich, because there are basically probably a couple of spots still up for grabs. I'm going to go on opposite ends of the name spectrum. I want you to talk about these two guys, not based on the coolness of their names, but on their chances of making the team. On one side, we have Woodrow Hamilton, and we have Darius Kilgo on the other hand. What do you think of those two guys? And of those two, which one is the best shot at making the team as a back end of the roster guy?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, I think that they're both extremely long shots. Last season, I was a huge fan of Woodrow Hamilton. I thought that he was one of the better run defenders on the team, and they had a really hard time moving him on goal line packages. He really earned his time with that Patriots defense. Unfortunately, he dealt with some injuries and kind of got bumped back down to the practice squad. But the Patriots paid him a lot of money to be there. He wasn't getting the practice squad minimum. He was treated as if he was a rookie on the back end of the roster. And so the Patriots like him a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him back on the practice squad, because I think that the top four guys on the Patriots with Alan Branch, Malcolm Brown, Lawrence Guy, and Vincent Valentine, you can't bump any of those guys for Woodrow Hamilton, especially because all four of them are better. And then if you add Adam Butler into the mix, that's another player that can phase in between the interior and the exterior. And I feel like you would prefer to keep Butler over a fifth defensive tackle like Woodrow Hamilton, who doesn't offer the same sort of versatility. And the same kind of applies for Kilgo. Maybe he'll come to the practice squad as the exception. I believe he's run out of his standard practice squad eligibility, but he can get that exception. But again, I just don't see a place for either of them on the active roster.
Yeah, I agree. I think they have really cool names. I was hoping to sneak them out. What's nice, though, we're talking about the defensive line here, and we hadn't really touched on the secondary that much. And usually around this time every year, we're like, who the hell is going to be playing defensive back for the Patriots? And at that point, it's pretty well locked in. The problem, however, is last week against the Texans, it was Tom Savage throwing to some guy they signed the week before, and he lit Malcolm Butler up. Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than whoever Houston's going to march out on there. And they have Golden Tate. They've got a pretty decent receiver core in Detroit. Calvin Johnson's no longer there, obviously, but they've got some good names. They've got some guys who can cause fits. Looking at this initial Patriots secondary versus Detroit Lions wide receiver matchup, how do you expect this matchup to go? And you think this is the week that Malcolm Butler redeems himself a little bit?
Yeah, Malcolm Butler needs to come out with a really strong performance. And I think that there's no one more disappointed with his outing than he is. He was targeted 4 or 5 times, depending on who's keeping track. He allowed 75 or 91 yards and a touchdown based on who's keeping track. And no matter who's keeping track, he didn't do a good job. He was very weak. He didn't look like he was tracking the ball well. He didn't look super engaged against the run. And it's definitely evident. I mean, maybe it was just a bunch of business decisions on his part, but there was that one jump ball to Bruce Ellington that went for 33, 37 yards. And it looked like he didn't even try to bring it down. And that's just not a good look. Overall, though, you look at the rest of the secondary, Stephon Gilmore played well. Devin McCourty played well. Patrick Chung played well. It was just a few chunk plays that went to Bruce Ellington. Butler was in coverage, so that's not a good thing. But if Butler can have a rebound day, I think some of the yardage that the Texans picked up was with Landon Roberts in coverage as well. So maybe David Harris out there changes that calculus a little bit. But, I mean, you make a really interesting point. The Detroit Lions, they do have Marvin Jones. They do have Golden Tate. Those are two very, very good wide receivers. And they have very similar skill sets in the sense that they're not tall guys. They're probably around 6 feet tall, 5'11". They're kind of in that Emmanuel Sanders type of mold. And that should be a very, very interesting matchup because theoretically it should play to the skill set of Malcolm Butler and also Stephon Gilmore. Gilmore is theoretically that prototypical number 1 cornerback that can match up against any type of receiver. But these specific type of receivers should favor Malcolm Butler. And so I think he's going to have a good rebound game. I really do. I think that last week was a fluke. We've seen enough of Malcolm Butler over the past couple of years to realize how he actually plays versus what he put on tape against the Texans. And so I think that he'll be back. I really do. I believe that they have it in them to be a shutdown secondary. The talent in this Patriots secondary is just undeniable. It goes the Denver Broncos. Then I think that the Patriots are right next to them. I do think that they're going to have a lot of success against Matt Stafford and the Lions.
I hope so. And you're right. You know, the Emmanuel Sanders mold is where Malcolm Butler excels. He's not going to match up against these big, long, rangy guys with their deep threats, but he's very good at shutting guys down. He's got really good hips and a good first step. So hopefully he can. I think Golden Tate's a great matchup for Malcolm Butler to really deep himself. And you're right. No one gets more mad than he does at a bad performance. To stick with that kind of analysis, but flip it on the offensive side of the ball, we're going to see Tom Brady. We're going to see Brandon Cooks. We're going to see Julian Edelman, maybe Chris Hogan. The entire wide receiver core will be out with Brady under center, hopefully throwing down the field, showing their stuff. How do you see this matchup, Patriots receivers versus Lions cornerbacks, and what are you hoping to see there?
Well, all right. I want to see more out of Brandon Cooks as a receiver. I mean, actually, I want to see more out of all of the Patriots as receivers because the Patriots decided to move the ball against the Texans simply by just dumping the ball off to Rex Burkhead. I believe he touched the ball like 9 out of 12 different times on the Patriots' first 2 drives. I doubt we're going to see that same type of touch rate for Mike Gillislee, even though he should be the starter. He should get a lot of opportunities. Rob Gronkowski should see a couple targets after seeing 0. Brandon Cooks should be utilized a little more than just that quick little hitch route that he used to catch against the Texans. I think that they'll throw a couple deep bombs down there. Julian Edelman and Chris Hogan should get involved as well. I think that I don't really need a specific player to step up, but I would like to see Tom Brady and the offense spread the ball around just because that is going to be their calling card this year. It's not going to be any one particular player. Gronkowski most likely will not get 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns this year. We're going to see 3 or 4 different players, Edelman, Cooks, Gronk, and maybe Hogan. I believe we'll see all of them around 800 to 1,000 yards with 5 to 10 touchdowns apiece.
I would love to have them all have 5 to 10 touchdowns apiece. That'll be the sign of a very prolific offense, and I would really enjoy seeing that. To piggyback on that, there's not really one player I'm looking for, but I also make sure they're all on the same page. And one thing Brady demands of his receivers is they need to be where he throws the ball. We saw a couple of years ago during the Aaron Dobson and Josh Boyce era where he was just really frustrated with his receiving core. When he'd see something, the receivers would not see it, and he'd let them have it on the sidelines. Brandon Cooks, all signs have pointed to him being acclimated well to this offense. He understands the playbook. Dwayne Allen was on the record, I think this week, talking about how difficult the Patriots offense is to learn. He wasn't making excuses, but he's talking about just the complexity of the offensive systems. Edelman, I'm not worried about, obviously. Amendola, Hogan, these guys have been in the system already. But Brandon Cooks, I don't know how well he learned the playbook yet, and this is a good chance to see maybe some audibles at the line, make sure they're both seeing the same things in the secondary if there are holes in the zone. If there are throws where Brady throws it and Brandon Cook kind of zigs, he's supposed to zag, that might not be the best chance going forward. I'm not worried about it, but I'll be keeping an eye on it for sure.
Absolutely, and there will be plenty to keep an eye on, and the game is about to kick off in about 10, 15 minutes. Do you want to get into our game predictions, Alec?
We should, and since I think, yes, I had Houston winning the game last week, so I guess I am going first this time. I really want to pick the Patriots to win this game, but I think they go 0-3 on the preseason this year. I really do. I think that the starters will look okay, but Brady, I'm looking at courtesy of BostonSportsJournal.com, which is run by Chris Price and Greg Bedard. If you've not signed up, definitely sign up. This is an amazing website. It's about $30 for the year. Fantastic coverage. Chris Price basically broke down how Tom Brady has played in week 3 of the preseason from 2016 all the way back to 2005. And with a couple of exceptions, he hasn't looked that good. 100-some-odd yards, a touchdown, a sack, a lot of picks. Just not the best showing from Brady in week 3. So I think that kind of continues. They're kind of lackluster. The Lions are going to be all fired up because they always do that. So I'm going to go Detroit wins this one 28-17.
Ooh, that's a blowout. Yeah. I'm going to go the opposite direction. I think that the Patriots are coming into this game very, very focused after losing the past 2. I think that they're disappointed that they've been unable to mount those fourth quarter comebacks under Jacoby Brissett. So I think that Malcolm Butler is going to be coming out angry. Rob Gronkowski, Brandon Cooks, Mike Gillislee, they're going to be coming in hot. I think that the Patriots win this one. Is again going to be a high-scoring game just on the basis of all the starters not playing deep into the game. But I believe that the Patriots are going to win this one 32-24.
Wow. High-scoring offense. Should be a lot of fun. Awesome. Glad to hear that again. This is of all the preseason games, this one's most exciting to watch. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good matchup, and we'll definitely be back to recover and recap all of this via the podcast, via the website, everywhere you need, everything you need on patspulpit.com and elsewhere. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Until after the game, Alec, you have a good one.
See you, bud.